Well, and there we go. I was seeing a black screen for a moment, but now I have the perfect picture. And welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inworld Review, where it is the 8th of June in the year 2014. We are getting better at this time travel business. Right. We are, of course, broadcasting live from Chilbo in Second Life, and we're brought to you courtesy of AView TV. And but this is a program where we sort of round up a bit of news about the metaverse in general, and exciting things going on, controversial things to be discussed, and well, the whole gamut of everything really. And there is very little headline news for me to dive into this week, although there is quite a lot of sort of anecdotal news that we'll get to when we open up the conversation. We were expecting Honor Macmillan to be back with us today, but things seem to have gone awry. We can't find her, Inworld or out. So I'm joined, as usual, of course, by the regular team, Tara Yates. Hi, Tara. Who's gone silent?
Oh, you expect? Yes, yeah. I was muted because we normally don't do hellos before you do your news.
Yeah, I know we don't, but everybody butts in anyway, so I figure I'll introduce you beforehand. And on the other side, I'm joined by Maria Gorolov. Hi, Maria.
Woo! Hi! Hey! Woo!
Woot. And on Tara's far side, the Second Life side, we also have Petlove Pet Shop. So hi, Pet. and Pet is silent too. Okay, so
oops, here I am. Sorry, not seeing lips. Whoops. Okay, there we go.
Right, and I'm going to hand over to Tara in a second. The only interesting thing that is striking me from the Twitter feed immediately, actually, which I suspect is news for next week rather than this week, is that the announcement that major virtual reality game announcements are expected this coming week at an event called E3 2014. Now, E3 is probably entertainment or something like that. I have not a clue exactly what E3 is. There are far too many conventions for my comfort in America, it seems. There's one week and one another, and I never know where they're entertainment focused, VR focused, virtual world focused, or whatever, but they all seem to interact with our world, so one has to pay attention. So we may well get to hear a lot more about virtual world interfacing and stuff like that come next week.
I'll talk about it a little bit too as well.
Great, that's absolutely great. So, without further ado, as I said, I'll leave my other comments till the conversation, and I'll throw the mic over to Tara for her sort of roundup of the week. So, to you, Tara.
Thank you, Mal. And I would agree with you that the news seemed a little thin this week, at least around Second Life. Perhaps I don't know if it constitutes the major item from which I took off in some interesting directions was the Dragster getting an official nod sponsorship from Linden Lab for his Drax Files World Makers series. I think that's good news. It's Drax, I think, does a really good job of some cameo coverage of individuals who are doing neat things in Second Life and doing the individuals justice. And he's getting good traction from those. If you go look at his feed, although interestingly his best video as far as viewers is the one he did on Guantanamo.
Oh, way back
some time ago.
That was actually before World Builders.
Oh yes, way back when. Yeah. But just looking kind of, I kind of dived in to do a little poking, and it was also interesting because it led me into considering the question of, well, what has gotten good, what have people watched from Second Life in the way of machinima and what have you that have been produced, and I turned up a couple of rather interesting little tidbits. First off, in the stuff that Dragster has listed under his profile in his top 100 and things he's done, the real standout with 500,000 views is I don't have time to date your avatar.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that actually is maybe to be expected.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I think actually Dratster is a good journalist. He's also a great video editor and audio editor. He does very well, but
anyway, I'm not done, Mel.
Okay.
Hold on, just hold your horses, please. So with 500,000, so that led me down a further primrose path to see what came up if I typed into YouTube Second Life, and then to sort it by popularity. And the winner, just absolute runaway winner, will be a surprise. It is a video, a machinima that was done of one of the Inworld pregnancy preparation programs that has a birthing series, a virtual birth process.
Is that one
and
of
in
Pookie's?
Fact, there's about
Pookie's?
Not Pookie's.
No,
it's another one. Pookie's is almost the top.
Okay.
On that. No, there's another one that's in Spanish or it's not in English as far as it's not as well done, but it's obviously that from the title it's catching a Spanish population. Somewhere in the world, but there's about 6 of them that are all around that subject in different languages by different people that have over 1 million to 2 million views per. So I mean that totally blew me away to see that's actually in the world of machinima in YouTube what's got the most traction as far as views is concerned. Isn't that interesting?
Yes,
it's
it
funny
is.
when I get all this stuff coming in, and I do know there is a lot. It's one of those odd things where it's a complete mix, because there are the role players, and that are pretending to give birth over time, and they make a machinima of the birth and stuff. And there are the more serious ones, which are actually real world clinics who are actually using the environment to augment the sort of pre-birth experience and things like that. So it's one of those things where you're never quite sure whether, I normally judge by the feed whether it's role play or whether it's serious. But it's a very good example of the medical profession being able to use the virtual environment to prep people for real life. So
yeah. Well, it's impossible to say of the machinima which ones were actually put together to be used in clinical settings versus those that were done as role play. And I think you always have to ask, especially on that whole business with people doing pregnancy role play, if they are trying to get pregnant, if they are pregnant, those kinds of things that it's hard for me.
I've lost Tara's voice.
Yes, Tara's cutting out.
That was a totally fascinating. And the other one that comes up near the top in total views that isn't about virtual pregnancy and birth giving is one that was done in 2006 by Susie Spicoli. That may be familiar now. Introduction to Second Life, a historical view. And if you really want to see how far Second Life has come,
What's that?
8 years, that's the one to look at. It's had almost 2 million views. So it's one of those you really hope it's kind of fallen to the bottom, because compared with how Second Life looks today, as I said, that one is just watching it is you say,
I suspect most of those views actually were a profusion of hits around the time, when Second Life was like the name of the big thing, before, it didn't peak. And, it would have attracted attention when the media were interested. So,
who knows, what it did. I mean, it's been up there long enough so that I can see where, the title would pull in people who were
those hits, they really accumulate over time too. Like I've had even just my small videos, if I get 15 hits and then nothing really happens after that, in the space of a year or two it's up to 50 or 100. So if it's something that's interesting, I can see how it would build up, although that is an awfully large number of hits.
Yeah, it really is. As I say, almost 2 million. I mean, anytime you get over, you get into 5 or 6 figures, that's starting to get pretty significant.
I'm wondering to what degree it's caused by the fact that this is an educational video, the childbirth video, that you can't see the real life version of it, because I assume YouTube wouldn't allow a real childbirth to be filmed.
I don't know.
And so
I don't know.
so if you have a cell phone and you're interested in the topic, this is what you would that comes up first.
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
That's possible. Yeah.
Especially in
I don't know. I didn't try a search for birthing on YouTube to see what's in there. Anyway, as I said, that was really that was quite interesting to see what those figures looked like overall. And both Dragster and Pookie have multiple videos that are at least into 5 figures. So you know they've got lots of good, and they're certainly not the only ones, but just because I started at Dragster and he linked to Pookie, and I didn't try to get scientific about it other than just what happens when you search for Second Life and eliminate the ones that have nothing to do with Second Life.
I have great stories about I'm too busy to date your avatar, because I was the zebra in that. That was we did that. We all did that, and someday I'll tell you. It was so much fun.
I bet
it was hilarious.
I bet you. Yeah, it's hysterically funny. It's great. Great send up.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. Another interesting one in lab item this week that has obviously gotten some coverage is that Versu, which was in limbo, and in fact, when Emily Short apparently tried to get the rights to it back after the lab dropped it and could not. Apparently, the lab had a change of heart when they saw the reactions to its departure, and have come back around and they're basically have given Emily and Richard the opportunity to continue creating and publishing using the engine that they're responsible for. So, Blood and Laurels, an ancient Roman thriller, will be published later this month. So I think that's really good news.
Now, what is that exactly? Is that a collaboration between who and Second Life? Versu?
It's a Linden Lab owned product. It's interactive storytelling, really focused on textual storytelling. It's not really virtual world as we would think of it, but it's a separate product that Linden Lab bought when Robert was going around buying all these sort of toys for the lab to take on. Sorry, not toys, because it's actually a rather good product, actually. But basically, it's one of the ones that got dropped. I forget whether it was dropped at the end of the Rodvik stint or when Ebbe came in. But obviously,
Ebbe came in and he did some house cleaning.
Yeah, basically, Linden Lab, of course, in buying the product, actually owned the product. So when they dropped it, the creators who were doing these stories were left without an engine to play with. And apparently, the lab this week, they have come to some contractual arrangement by which they're continuing to do it under license from Linden Lab. But it's no longer a Linden Lab product.
And who are these people? Who are they?
Emily Short is one, and
Richard Evans is the
other guy. It's basically just the two of them.
Are they real life not film but play producers or something like that, or?
Well, I think I'm not sure what their backgrounds are, but they're writers.
They're authors. They're authors.
I'd probably consider them authors who happen to also be game developers, or link the two together because they saw the possibilities in interactive fiction and particularly artificial intelligence driven.
Oh, okay.
So the stories can go many different directions depending upon how you react to them, how you respond to them, and what your input is as the story moves along. So
wow, that sounds neat.
It's one of those that I have been meaning. I downloaded the first round, and that's as far as I got. I didn't even get started on it. I just got too many other things going on when they first rolled it out for iPad.
Interesting. That sounds fascinating.
Back in the day when before the online stuff, when the game Dungeons and Dragons became popular, for example, they started publishing novels that tied in with it, but these novels were actually compiled like games. In other words, there will be a beginning, a middle, and the end, but there are multiple paths in the middle and possible multiple endings. And depending on how you answer the question,
Right, I've seen books like that, kids' books.
At a point in the novel, if you said, I want to turn right or I want to turn left, then it was said, right, you've chosen left, go forward or back to page so-and-so.
Right.
And you will continue the story from a different place. So they were constructed, although they were text novels, they were constructed a bit like games, where it's all pre-scripted, but there are opportunities to diverge and have multiple endings. And this, the Versus thing is like a very advanced form of that.
Cool.
Far more complex than you could probably have in a written thing in a book. But, using on-screen technology and hyperlinks, you've got umpteen possibilities.
I think that sounds really unique and interesting, really.
It is. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, for I think especially for people who, still have a deep affection, a deep love for, and a deep addiction to the written word.
Sure.
That's
sure.
It's I don't know about anybody else here, but I find that fiction still has a massive appeal to me.
Oh yeah.
That just doesn't go away. There's a very big difference to me between what goes on in my head as I imagine a story unfolding and what it looks like and what the characters look like and all that. That's distinctly different from watching movies.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
sure.
they always spoil the good novels by making a movie.
Right.
And if you go and see the movie, you no longer have the liberty of imagination. You're forever.
They wreck your image.
You're forever
They
tainted
destroy
by the director's view.
I know as a teacher, I had students, particularly in the lower grades, who really enjoyed reading those stories that would have the different endings as a result of their choices, and they would read the same book 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 different ways, when it would be like pulling chicken's teeth to get them to read anything at all to begin with. So it was very good with a good handful of kids, that type of an arrangement. So
I loved those books when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too, when I discovered them. Yeah,
my only complaint was that they were always too short.
You got to do them over and over again, though.
That's true.
I'm afraid they didn't have those back in the era of Abacus and
Also, they did continue too. I mean, I think what they called the Secret Seven or something like that. A boy and girls team that had adventures when I was a kid, and if I remember, they were pretty much set in England, but there was a fantasy element in that you could imagine the environment they're in. But there was a whole series, so you did continue the imagination journey, because the next book will come out and it will be a continuation of what you'd imagined in the first book. So you really did become involved rather than just say single novels. So yeah.
Anyhow, well, I do have some show and tell today, and I actually decided to do the show and tell last because part of this involves a little visual.
It involves getting up off your seat.
Yes, it involves getting up off my seat. Yes,
right. We're not afraid.
Yes, I in fact have paid at least the first visit to the arcade gotcha event that started this week, last Sunday. And you will notice that I am festooned with not one but 2 kitties, and these are 2. There's actually 3 different styles that are wearable, and they come in several different flavors, and they're just very cute. One of them hangs on your front. There's one that wraps around your neck, and I forget what the third one does because I didn't get one of those, or I haven't yet.
Yeah.
It's always that random thing that makes these fun. Anyway, they're very cute, and there are tons of different collectible sorts of animals of various stripes in these
fur arrangements,
arcade gotcha events. So I'm sure there are people who are just totally into the collection end of it. I think I tend to focus. If it's cats, I'll pay attention. So, but you'll notice over on the stage to the right, one of the things that has been striking me for a while is the fact of, with the advent especially of mesh, designers are putting energy and attention into their packaging. So, it used to be, you got an item, it came in a box, and maybe they put a texture on the box, but it was still a prim, it was still a basic cube. Well, now they're not. And you'll notice there's a couple of bags here with kitty heads poking out of them, and they may be actually whole kitty bodies. And those are what these kitties came in. And the bags are just totally cute too.
Sure.
Yeah, aren't they? I mean, the bags I'll keep just because they're because they're cute too.
Put them in your house.
And you'll notice, you'll notice in front here another item is a stick with a bag on it. It's kind of like the hobo bag, and that's from another gotcha. Which I'll set up on a neighboring, kind of next door here for next week, of a wonderful treehouse with various items, and the treehouse itself is a rare. And boy, I was really hitting
you
because
had fun.
I had 3 of them. 3 of the rares, in about 5-6 rounds on this one.
Sweet.
One machine. So I'll set that up. But the hobo bag is from there. Anyhow. I also have sort of collected musical items in these gotcha events, and somebody's done banjos, and so I picked up. Thus far I have a few. I don't have the whole collection by any means, but they're wearable. I'll put one on later. Well, no, I won't put one on. But and so if you wear them, you play the banjo, the pose isn't particularly good, but then again, that's typical.
Can't have everything.
Basic music animations, and then behind them you'll see there's a stairway, and that's a gotcha item from a boho wannabe vendor. That's various items, textures, and items that are all kind of in a boho flavor, and that also is a rare, and was another one that I got the rare on the first crack.
You should have bought a lottery ticket that day.
Yeah,
You just run out and gotten a lottery ticket.
It was amazing because I think there were 3 different things that I hit the rare on the first crack.
Jeez.
Or one of the rares on the first crack. Anyway, I thought that was rather cool too. It's just a neat item. And then the final item I'm going to demo, and I'll stand up and do that. You'll see we have this dog on a springy thingy. Now, actually, I'm going to have to go back and get some more, but I haven't yet. I actually have 2 of the dog. Because my second try, sometimes if you hit the same place twice too fast, you get the same item twice, and sometimes it's not something you want to particularly. And I know people trade, but anyway, this is a springy dog, and you can sit on him and ride, and you get funny animations when you do.
That's adorable.
Yeah, and
it looks a bit like a rodeo animation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A horseback
look at that.
thing. Oh God, I'm going to get kicked off.
That's hilarious.
It's got a whole bunch of options here of what you can do on him.
Oh, good grief!
But they have several different dogs, and then they have some cats too. And of course, I will have to go back and play this one until I get one of the cats.
At least one cat, yeah.
Yeah, have to get one cat. So anyway, great fun. It's as I say, it's the Arcade Gotcha event. It just started this week. It runs through the month of June. The Sims Country Club, and I'll put the landmark in chat. It's at 3115 elevation. So if you go to Country Club, probably if you pick most any place and you hit at 3115, you'll at least be at the right elevation to be inside the
nosebleed seats.
Yeah. Anyhow, nice. I think I've had for this.
I guess we come back here while you just quickly take your seat again.
You
have reminded me, actually. It was a very short video clip, and it's probably on Metalworld 1 somewhere that I put up. But it was really appropriate because somebody went to the catcher, and they couldn't get in. But what they did manage to make was a film of the 4 surrounding Sims with people in the sky and lurking on the borders trying to get in. And had this wonderful film of the Sim that nobody could get into, and then avatars literally on adjacent Sims, and the clip was panning around somehow,
just waiting for their chance.
All
to
these
get in.
people, waiting for their chance to TP in, hanging out on the border. And of course, a lot of people actually, the one trick you can sometimes do is get really close to the border and then cam in. And if you're lucky, you can sometimes, do a sit or pick up something from outside the sim. Without actually going in there. You do your shopping by
Long
camera.
distance shopping, yeah.
Yeah, shopping by camera now. Isn't that a new thing?
Well, at least for this one, they have, for one thing, you can, if you join their group, they produce a HUD that will preload textures. So when you go in, you're not standing around forever waiting for textures to load, because it's, especially if the place is busy.
A good idea.
You can waste a lot of time just standing there waiting to be able to see stuff. And of course, their website does a great job of giving you previews. So you can go in and you for example, the treehouse that you're not seeing this week, but we'll see next week, was one that caught my eye from just looking at the pictures. And the banjos caught my eye too.
Is there a map so you know generally where to go to the right machine to get what you particularly want?
No, you pretty much have to flounder around in the room,
right. Which is a shopping strategy, of course. They make you see things.
Well, something I did find on previous times when I've gone there or finally got there is I actually, as Tara mentioned, I actually see blog posts. That's actually where I saw avatars on the dogs that we just saw live, so to speak. And quite often they will give you a slow which actually lands you right by the booth that is selling that thing. But that's a matter of following the slow from a blog post. They've obviously kept the place and then blogged from there. But obviously, if you just go in at random, you get really rather lost. You have to fight your way through the lag and try and see everything.
Yeah, it's a fairly small building. It's a neat looking place. It's very well designed, and I found I can kind of park in about 3 or 4 different spots and then just cam through to see the specific gotchas without having to actually move myself around.
Yeah,
that many times to see everything that's there, but it's great fun, and it's a good place to go in one of your minimal prim tiny outfits. I have a tiny cat that I use, and I had an interesting encounter with a tiny dog, and a tiny dog who is one of those that's got a whole bunch of tiny dogs that are all part attached to his avatar. So here was me as a single cat in this mob of dogs. Just kind of fun.
Oh dear, yes, I'll have to make sure I'm in a human avatar when I go there.
I happened to see this cute in chat, and I looked at, because I was looking at a gotcha machine at the time, and cammed out and said, "Oh, there's this little dog in this mob of dogs," and so I said, "Woof," and he said, "LOL."
One of those priceless moments in Second Life.
Yes.
We live for them.
Yes. Anyway, back to you, Mal.
Okay, right. Well, just before I hand over to Maria, a couple of I will make a couple of points, especially as I was shushed on the bit about Linda Lab's new sponsorship with Dragster. Oh, yeah. Dragster is now I'll shush you. Dragster is clearly an excellent style of journalism. But more importantly, is an excellent editor, both with video and particularly audio, which is his original sort of thing. A lot of us, and I'm not just talking about me, I'm talking about Metaverse Television and a whole load of people, sort of been angling at the idea, why the hell don't, Second Life put TV on their front page, so that both the front page of the browser and on the website, so people who can't be in World can actually watch this stuff. And they never really responded to it. So, they finally have, but it's not all what I call all embracing. They've adopted a personality, and it reminds me a bit of Torley Linden, who of course did a lot of the official videos for Linden Lab for a long while, and Torley is quite charming and very particular in his zany sort of voice and everything else, but I always felt it was a bit specific. In other words, if there was anything about Torley's style that put you off, then it was also putting you off the product. And I don't think Dratster is in danger of falling into that, because his World Builder series is very well edited, but his personality does come through. I also noticed a couple of weeks ago when he went to the he was allowed to host a session at the Silicon Valley Virtual Worlds convention, and his personality also came across there. I actually thought that sometimes it actually dominated the proceedings, but the thing I felt, which was a bit of a shame, was that he was hosting a panel with 5 panelists, and although they did get their word in, I felt he rather neglected the 3 that weren't connected with Linden Labs. He was really focused for a great deal of the time on Philip and Ebbe. And I did feel a bit sorry for the other panelists, because their host, the host they were dealing with was in Second Life headspace, if you like. And I thought particularly the guy who invented VRML could have had a lot more to say, but he was, and the other 2, but they were just drowned out. So I think as a voice of Linden Lab, Dratster is actually a very good fit. I suspect World Builders will become, increasingly, if it isn't already, Second Life focused. In other words, the good stuff he's doing already, but I can't imagine him doing an episode on somebody doing something in OpenSim, for example, because that wouldn't fit the fact that he's now sponsored by Linden Lab and is on their front page. So, I think he's becoming like, he's going to become a kind of PR front for Linden Labs, and good luck to him with that. But I think we should remember that there's a lot more to the metaverse than what is actually being covered there. And I still want to see a browser that has a choice of TV streams, if you like, on its front page. So if people can't get in World there, they can help us promote the TV channels for them, sort of a particular sort of favoritism, because the lab always gets flack when it pays favoritism. And I think the fact that there's no direct competition to Dratster is the only thing that has stopped the cries of favoritism coming up as a result of this. But it is still a great move for Dratster, and probably a very good move for the lab, because it does demonstrate the real world. What Dratster does with World Builders, that particular series, it really does demonstrate the real world sort of focus. And indeed, if you are watching this show live on Meta World 2 on Sunday, you will know that we showed the very latest Dratster clip just before this show went on air, featuring an artist whose entire profession revolves around painting through Second Life. So it's all very interesting stuff. It fits in with this channel, with the idea of showing best practices in virtual worlds. Great stuff, but there could be a debate there. Now, interestingly, I've been giving a lot of thought to broadcast and stuff recently. I've started re-aggregating our channels, and apart from this show, not really doing any actual broadcasting, or even we've got wonderful people like Lapaisian at AView now, who are doing video on demand services, so there's no reason to do that. The more people that do different things and do them together is, to me, the best thing going, rather than sort of competition. this is still the original pioneers have gone from Second Life. They're probably an open sim, but a lot of these, everybody still here is pioneering in a way. And somewhere down the line, we may have multiple virtual channels vying for viewer ratings and advertising money and stuff like that. And if that happens, it happens. But at the moment, it's all the facets of this, be it video on demand, live channels, video hosting, all this sort of thing. It's the combined thing of all those working together that is going to be promoting the art form and promoting virtual worlds, indeed, out to a greater audience. And I'm afraid that people acting like prima donnas in World is not really the way to the future. It might be when they're head of a huge corporation making a lot of money and they can afford to, but I think it's really the onus is on collaboration at the moment, and community. Oh, noise!
I do apologize.
Community and collaboration is to a very great extent what all these virtual spaces are about. Now, I'm going to hand over to Maria, but before I do, I've actually got one. I'd like her to start with this. Actually, I've got one link that I've got several places, but I've got Maria's link at the moment about basically a chap called Timothy Rogers. So I'd love to get on the show. He's the CEO of ZetaMex, which Maria has talked about in the past. But they have started a sort of crowdfunder or fundraising operation of some sort. Yeah, crowdfunding to actually launch something called Grid Press. I think there's a couple of posts already out entitled Grid Press, but the idea is it's going to be an open sim news site, which is great because we could do without. We've just recently got a destination site, as well as Hyperia, of course, but one of the things they're actually saying is that the crowdfunding is really about getting to a $300 a month goal, which will allow them to start working on a monthly podcast. $300 a month is not very much, but on the other hand, for a monthly podcast, I don't know. I don't know where they're talking video, but it's interesting because one of the things, and this is where I'm keen, Maria, really, that has been lacking, I think, with OpenSim development is we've got all our media and stuff stuck here in Second Life. This program deals largely with the greater metaverse and OpenSim, but we're still filming in Second Life because of various mechanical, technical, logistical reasons, and yet. Because I suppose it's such, OpenSim is huge. The hypergrid is huge. It's probably bigger than Second Life, depending on criteria you look at it by. But it's a lot of fragmented communities, and there is a real need for, centralized broadcasting, if you like, or centralized media that actually covers it. I mean, we have Grid Press. We of course have Hypergrid Business, and we have the name of the one I've forgotten is popping up. With destinations all over the place at the moment.
You're talking about the Google Plus communities, and we got HyperZ, and we have Virtual Christine, and Daniel Voyager.
No, those three are actually great. Daniel especially covers it is equally the highlights as much as Second Life. But no, there is... I'll have to come back to it later, but there is a site that's been running now for about a fortnight, which has about 3 or 4 posts a week, and it simply chooses destinations on OpenSim.
Not HyperZ?
That's it. Yep, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So things are changing, but as an aggregator, curator, moderator, whatever I am, I love it when all these things are coming up. I want to grab them all together and sort of try and consolidate them so they all work side by side, and I can sit back and lap it up. But anyway, I thought I'd mention that post as a trigger point. But over to you, Maria, for round up time.
Well, thank you for when you were making that transition to me. You didn't start out by saying, and speaking of prima donnas, let's go over to...
Maria, we would never, ever even think that.
This is my goal in life, to become a diva. I was this close to finally getting the recognition I deserved.
Oh, such a perfect segue. And I
would have been a perfect segue.
Next time.
Yes. So yes, the only other podcast I know of that features OpenSim is Vanish Seriath's The Missing Image.
Oh yeah.
And it's filmed, I think it's every other Thursday, half in English, and the other half of the shows are filmed in German. So like they alternate shows. It's not like half the shows in English, half the shows in German. But like 1 week it's in English, 1 week's in German. I've been on there, I think once, maybe twice. And it's filmed on the Metropolis grid.
If you really want to know, you are on there on The Missing Image number 19, and it was actually their very last show, which was in the 16th of April. They have not had an episode since then. I actually, just by pure coincidence, I have the RSS feed in the same browser I'm running the studio on. So you can certainly find that at, I'll have to dig up the feed address, but yeah.
Yeah, the big problem with all the OpenSim media is that if you only have one person working on it, it can be really, really hard to sustain it if you have anything else at all to do with your life. And so I've been really fortunate at Hypergrid Business. We've been getting a lot of different freelancers and helpers and volunteers and designers and writers and experts and consultants to help keep us going these 5 years. I want to thank you all. Most recently, we've had Cyberjack helping out with the redesign, and Cudworth did an article for us just recently about the new viewers for the Oculus Rift in Second Life and OpenSim. She did a nice review that's up on the site. So I really appreciate that. And I regularly post reprints from other sites as well, including Grid Press and Arch Virtual and a whole bunch of others. So I appreciate those folks for sharing their content as well.
I have I put a link in the chat for live viewers for The Missing Image, and in particular your show there. So.
Yep. So I'm really looking forward to seeing a podcast come about. I would like to see more different kinds of content besides just text, because people need to get their stuff in different ways. So some people prefer to listen to it, in a car while driving. Some people like to watch the videos. So everybody has a different approach, and the more approaches we have to getting the word out, the better. So I am totally in support of this, and I'll talk to Tim again and see if we can get him on the show. So most of my news this week is actually from outside of OpenSim. I will start out with E3, which you mentioned. It's next week. It's the Electronic Entertainment Expo, and this is basically the big annual video game conference. And Oculus Rift is there. There's a little VR area. And so we're expecting to see a lot of video game demos that work with virtual reality. And I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but Sony's Project Morpheus headset was just demonstrated on the Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show on Friday night. And that was a very funny video. So if you guys want to see it, he was there with Channing Tatum, and I think they beat each other up in some video game. So
do we have a link by any chance to?
I have it on my homepage of Hypergrid Business.
Oh right, okay. Let me.
So if you go to hypergridbusiness.com, it is on the sidebar, news briefs, Jimmy Fallon, Channing Tatum, try Project Morpheus headset.
Oh right, I was thinking of E3 in general, but yeah. Okay.
And so now, Jimmy Fallon, of course, tried on the Oculus Rift headset about a year ago. So he's definitely, when it comes to mainstream media, he's the most mainstream of the media, and definitely is all about our target demographic, at least as far as video game players are concerned. Maybe not necessarily so much the enterprise users, but on the video game, definitely he's there. So also, there's a rumor that Microsoft might have something. They're right now they, Google, and Apple are the three big tech giants who haven't really come out with anything in this space yet. And I think it's getting really clear that there's a lot of excitement about virtual reality, and they're hanging back maybe they're seeing what wins. And Apple might be holding back until they have the perfect gizmo, because Apple does that sometimes. And Microsoft may be holding back to see what wins and then buying them. And Google, for all I know, is working on something behind the scenes, or letting Samsung with their headset Android-based approach do something in the VR space, which I think is very interesting, because right now smartphones are a little bit too slow to run virtual reality games, but they're pretty good at running virtual reality movies and maybe more simple kind of simulations. And it's definitely the cheaper way to go, because all you need is this plastic headset with a couple of lenses in it, and you slide a cell phone in, and the cell phone is where all the brains are. So you already have a cell phone, so you don't need to pay twice for the brains, and it's wireless. So
something related to that, I'll just stick it in case you haven't got it. I was reading up on this in the week. I think it's LG, who I always think of working very closely with Samsung, although they're a separate company. I guess they're the same region. They have developed an operating system, I guess, competing with Android, called Tizen.
Yes.
I think I maybe mentioned it and couldn't remember the name last week. Yeah, and it's quite interesting that the same operating system has just been launched in some of their phones, I guess to compete with Android, but it's also the same operating system that they will be using in their giant screen smart TVs from now on. So the impression I have of it is that this is a very scalable, physically operating system that could potentially be able, to run virtual environments and as much as video.
From what I understand, it's a branch off of Android. I could be wrong on this, but the thing about Android is that it's based on Linux. It's open source, so anybody can use it. But if they call it Android, they have to be fully compatible with the core, the basic Android system. So you can't just call something Android and then have it be different. Like, for example, Amazon took the Android operating system and used it for their Fire Kindle, but they've customized it quite a bit, so it doesn't really look like Android anymore. But it's still, Android in the background. I believe what Tizen is something similar. They're a way of customizing Android beyond what's allowed under the Android brand. So if you want to use the Android brand, you have to be fully compatible, because they want to go off a little bit and be able to do their own stuff with it.
Because the Tizen is also, more importantly, they are open sourcing it. They're hoping, obviously, that it will be a common interface for smart.
So one of the reasons is that it's more, from what I heard from when it was first launched, is that the idea is that it allows more integration with the Chinese language and the Chinese interface styles, that things are done, because the Chinese language is so different from most other languages, that it has certain unique characteristics that if you can, that customizing the interface around it makes it a lot easier for those users to use it. So it would be really popular to have this also nice to have a national operating system that's that's not a foreign made something from America. It's also a little embarrassing. But yeah, Android could be used the same way that Tizen is used, and Linux in general is used this way a lot as an embedded operating system, because it's free. You can put Linux into anything, your refrigerator, your microwave, anything, and you don't have to pay anything extra for the operating system. And you can chop out any bits that you don't need, because if you're running it in a microwave, you don't need most of it. And you can have a really lightweight, fully customizable operating system that you can use to run pretty much anything. So
I'm just imagining my Facebook friends examining what's going on in my microwave,
Oh my God,
extremes.
It is such a huge problem for companies right now, because these embedded operating systems, it's really hard to upgrade it when there's a patch. So say you have a scanner that runs on Linux and a patch comes out. There's no keyboard and screen on the scanner, so you can download a new patch for it. And if there's a security flaw, somebody can break into your scanner and use it to infiltrate your network. And this is actually a significant problem because our devices are getting really smart and they're all running this complex embedded software that's invisible. We most of the time, we don't know that there's actually an operating system in this device that's running. And it can be really scary, but it has nothing to do with virtual reality or OpenSIM or anything else. But yeah, it's happening.
Well, it is related because, without an operating system, there are very few virtual world platforms that can operate at the moment. You have versions on different operating systems, but there's, I would love to see an operating system where the virtual space was my desktop and links and apps ran from within the virtual environment, but there's no such thing.
I think eventually we will get to that place where the same way as we went from the green screen to graphical interfaces, at first the graphics were add-ons to your regular DOS operating system or your regular Apple operating system, and you might have a few applications that ran in graphics mode. But then after a while, you had a sea change, and you had graphics was at the center. And if you wanted to drop down to a DOS interface, you'd have to pull up your DOS prompt. And the default was the graphics. And the old-fashioned 2D, the 1D interface, the line-by-line interface, was actually something that you had to call up specifically if you needed it. And I think that we don't have the metaphor yet for how it's going to look. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that at some point we will get to a place where 3D is the default. And we will pull up the 2D windows and the 2D browsers and 2D TV screens when we need them. But by default, we'll start out in the 3D space. And
maybe
whoever creates that operating system will be owning a good chunk of the future.
Indeed.
So maybe startup garage.
maybe things like gesture tech, and the other thing I did remember in the week actually that came up is that the only hardware that actually incorporated Leap motion technology were HP laptops. So there's a range of them, and this week they are actually now selling HP keyboards with the Leap motion built in, separate from any other hardware you might buy, which is quite a nice touch.
That's cool. Yeah. There's there's a divide right now as to where we're going with the gesture interfaces, how we're going to see them. A camera-based approach, such as Leap Motion and Kinect, they're limited by the line of sight of the camera, and so. If you turn around, your hands disappear, right? If you go off to the side or up over your head, you can't see your hands anymore. You have to be right, in a certain position. With the handheld controllers, there's quite a bit more freedom of motion there, but you have to have something in your hands. So maybe we'll see a combination of that. Like, for example, right now we have a combination of mice and controllers. We use a mouse at work and a joystick when we play games. So maybe we'll have a bifurcated system depending on what we're using it for, with like a Leap Motion thing. When we're working, we're sitting at our keyboards, our hands are right there, we're not flailing around, we're doing real work, and those kind of motions are appropriate. And then in the living room with the big gaming systems, we might have something that's more full body. Speaking of
I thought the ideal thing, I was thinking about this recently, I think it would be the ideal interim, which I think somebody could manufacture, is like a kit with 6 devices in it, basically. 4 would be the same and 2 would be different. These devices would have multiple sensors. They'd have cameras in them. They would maybe a couple of different types, but they'd have the longer range, but the sort of sensitive thing of Leap. But they'd combine the cameras with all the motion and gyroscopic technologies and all the stuff we got at the moment. And I would simply, 4 of these units will fit in a rectangle or a square in the top corners of a room. Or the suitable position if it was an L-shaped room or something, right? And these would constantly track you within the space of the square or the rectangle that is defined, and they'd be looking down at you. There will
Judging you.
Yeah, well, no. The fifth part of the kit would go on a wall at a specific height. And for people who've got big screen TVs and interact with them, I would probably think by the side of the TV, so that it's an anchored position. So that would be a directional one, but its most important function would be that with calibration software, you would define what the height is off the ground. If you see what I mean. And on top of this, there would be a center one that would go in the center of the ceiling, like where light sockets are, which would actually have a locking control to synchronize all the other ones. And the height one, the small one that would go lower down in the room, it's like surround sound, really. It's you calibrate the system, and sort of the sensors would be able to detect distance from each other, but the one with height would actually allow these things looking down at you to also know how high you are above the ground in relation to whatever you're interacting with. And I think you can't walk around. This isn't mobile tech, but I would think a kit like that people could buy as a kit and just stick up these wireless units that work with each other would effectively turn the whole room into a multi-sensory environment.
You've clearly thought about this quite a bit. Do you have a patent on it yet?
No. I'm just thinking. I have a bad habit of it. It's like those glasses I had the other week, where they can be opaque or transparent or point in between. I tend to dream up these ideas and just let them loose. I'm too old to go around taking out patents. You can take a patent for me and pay me, give me a percentage.
Well, maybe one of our audience members can, in which case you'll all know how to contact you. Yeah,
well, what's the point? They'll run with it, and we will never know about it until 20 years down the line when it's major release. Yeah. Anyway.
So with controllers, Prio VR is one of these control systems where you strap on these sensors onto your wrists and ankles, and it does full body motion capture for video games. And it's announced a delay. They were supposed to be shipping in June. Now they're shipping sometime later on in this year. And another system, Control VR, just launched a Kickstarter, and they're more than halfway to its goal. And that looks like a very cool one. And I've got a story up about them as well. This system is based on gloves. You can put on a pair of gloves, and it tracks individual fingers. So you can do sign language with these, or very detailed work like medical simulations and things like that. So very cool. They reached half their goal in just one day. So very exciting product.
If anybody watches Metal World 3, which is the Metal World News channel now, it's we've had some clips of that glove and stuff.
Yeah.
And you also, actually, it's exactly related to this. You had another post up this week on Loading Human. And
yes.
They're going to have a natural user interface too, which does away.
I very much like the Loading Human one. Now, the Loading Human one, the demo uses handheld controllers. And so there isn't like the whole finger controls, but it's very interesting. Now, Loading Human is a video game. They're a Kickstarter, first-person kind of action video game. But what it does is that you have your hands in World, and when you touch an object, your hand positions change depending on what you can do with the object. Like your hand will change so it's pointing at the object if you're supposed to be touching it, or your hands will change into like a grabbing motion if you're supposed to take it. So the way your mouse changes shape depending on what you can do with something when you mouse over it. So their whole idea is to get rid of all the interface elements and make it totally natural, so that you're touching everything, you're looking in the right direction, And if a prompt is needed, there's a voice that sounds like it's coming from inside your head, like this is what you're thinking. That gives you some clues. I'm thinking maybe I should make a left down this hallway. I wonder what's there. That kind of thing, right? So the you can kind of hear the character's internal dialogue. So I thought that was very interesting, and that there might be some ideas in this game for people to use in all kinds of virtual reality applications as a way to get rid of the whole menu system. Because the menu system is really bad in virtual reality. It's hard to read the text, breaks the immersion, it kind of gets in the way. It's on the side of your screen. You turn your head to try to chase it. It keeps, So there's problems with using menus and pop-up menus and stuff like that. And in something like a natural interface like this, where your hands actually change depending on what actions are possible in this particular environment, I thought that was a really cool way of looking at it. I don't know if it will take off or not, but it's great to see all these people imagining different ways to interact with the virtual environment. And I thought that was really cool. Another delay is with Virtuix. Speaking of interfaces, this is the Virtuix Omni treadmill, which looks a little bit like a big frisbee that you're standing on, and it lets you run or walk in place. So it's very cool. They've been demoing it all over the place, usually in conjunction with the Oculus Rift and plastic guns. It's great for first-person shooters because you can run around and shoot people. So they're having a little bit of a delay. Very sad to see that. And another Kickstarter news is AntVR. They're the Chinese group that's doing an open source version of the Oculus Rift, and it comes with a very cute controller. You might like this, Mal. The controller snaps into different shapes, so it could be a steering wheel, or it could be two separate pieces that you're holding, or it could be one gun that you're holding. So it's very cool. So kind of like you can like a little transformer kind of thing. And they've passed their goal, and now they have a stretch goal. They want to upgrade their lenses. So right now they have regular LCD lenses, which are okay, but they want to upgrade to the OLED lenses, which are great. Yeah. So that's if they've hit 500,000, and the Kickstarter is still ongoing, so you can pitch into that. So that is happening out there. So I talked about Control VR.
It is actually fascinating, at the moment. We get a lot of news. I think you'll agree. We get a lot of news releases and things every week about this new gadget is now doing this thing and that thing or whatever. But they all actually end up being a Kickstarter announcements. And you often read the headlines thinking, "Oh, this has just come out." It's the way it's phrased,
Yeah, a lot of people are communicating these days with Kickstarter updates instead of with press releases.
Yeah.
So that's I find that extremely interesting, because it used to be that you'd wait for the company to put out a press release about what's going on. Now the company is communicating directly with its backers via these Kickstarter updates, which is a very, very interesting way to get the news out. So I thought that was really cute. Okay, another Oculus type thing is I saw this video last night, and I was like, whoa, it really blew me away. It was for a virtual opera. I don't know if have you seen this?
Oh, the video.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And I haven't. I was sitting here with it, and I thought, now what channel should I put that on? Because it's just totally different. I mean,
it was weird.
Yeah.
So this is it's a pretty film, and it's pretty music, but nobody really would notice it. I mean, there's a lot of pretty artistic little films and pieces of music out there, but they turned it into a virtual reality experience. And this guy, Emart, who does reviews of virtual reality games, not the kind of guy you expect to review an opera, he decided to review this because it's a new Oculus thing. So, of course, people, be all over it. And he was just blown away by the experience. You're on a boat, and the boat goes through this virtual reality landscape while the music plays around you, and you're totally immersed in the music and in the imagery. And he was just blown away for it. I would strongly recommend that you watch it. I have it posted up on Hypergrid Business, the eMart video, and the film that you can watch is a regular film as well. And for me, this illustrates the power of virtual reality. Now, an opera has the potential of moving somebody. You can listen to it on your headphones and be, taken away by the music, or be there where it's being performed, or you can watch the film on a big screen and be transported. But with virtual reality, it becomes a very portable experience where you are totally there in this world that the artist has created. And it's not interactive. It's not a video game. You're not killing anybody. You're just sailing through this world.
It actually looks like it sort of fits in this little niche between immersive virtuality, participator as we call it, and film. Because, there've been operas and all sorts of nice stuff like that performed in Second Life theatre and whatever, which is great. But it's very, very hard, especially in Second Life, for any, even a whole group of camera people to actually capture the full thing in such a realistic way. Whereas looking at this clip, I was really struck just how real it seemed, even though it was virtual, and how much that enhanced the opera. It was just this sort of magic sort of middle ground somewhere that just popped up, with perfect virtual reality, perfect performance, and everything else.
Right. So I think that, I've been saying for a while that I think that virtual reality is a new medium, but this is an example of a way to use it as a new medium without any game playing elements at all. It's music and it's visual, but it also puts you right there in the middle of it. You're not watching a performance of the opera. You're not in the audience. You're not like, watching the musicians play. You're actually in the middle of the music. You're in the middle of the visual effects. And it was a very different take on it, and I thought that was really creative and very moving. This particular reviewer says at the end that he's gonna, the minute that he's done with this video, he's gonna do it all over again because it was just such an amazing experience.
I thought you were going to say he's going to go out and buy a load of opera records.
You have to wonder because when you do. A lot of people were first exposed, for example, to classical music in like Looney Tune cartoons and stuff. And the soundtracks for video games are getting really amazing right now. But in this particular case, it's just the music and just the video. There is no cartoon or game to distract you from it. You are looking at the creation directly, and it's a very powerful, moving way to present your art to somebody. So I was very interested by that video, and it doesn't have anything to do with OpenSim, but I think people should see it.
It's virtual world technology, and interfacing is what it's all about at the end of the day.
And I'm also
forget the labels.
Now, I also love the use of virtual reality for marketing, and this next piece is all about that. So I talked a little bit last week about Chuck E. Cheese putting Oculus Rifts in its stores, or arcades, restaurants, whatever they're called, to get kids to play this virtual reality game. Here, there's a marketing company that created a virtual circus and is taking it on the road to bars in England to let people try out this virtual experience as a way of marketing the Fire Eater hot cinnamon liqueur. So that's something that would really make it stand out, and I thought that was a very cute way to do marketing, because everybody wants to try out the Oculus Rift, and this is a very kind of low-cost way to get a lot of attention for it, and have something people really remember. I mean, you would really. So this would be like I believe this virtual experience. You're jumping off of a high dive, and it's something that would stick with you afterwards when you leave the bar, even if you were drunk while you were doing it, I assume. And so this is a way of creating a memorable marketing experience.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we talked about the grid press.
Let me just prompt you with a few things. So these aren't from your blog actually, but I'm going to just put the links into chat here, if it will allow me to copy. Yes, it will. Right. The first link I'm passing through, if somebody could paste it into the channel because it's on another machine here. This is a Tumblr blog from somebody called Jim Harland, and it's about education on open simulated grids. It's actually quite a short piece, but it contains lots of links and a sort of glossary of books and various things at the end there. So it's a really, really useful, very, very useful reference of stuff to be had there, as well as a nice little article. Now you actually had one of Joe Rigby's press releases for Millennium in the week as well. The 3D museum art, and he loves bragging, this guy. 100 times more detailed than Second Life.
I actually no, that was my fault. I asked him for something sexy for the headline because originally it was something very dry and museum such and such, very, very, very long technical title, and I was like, I want something juicy that will catch attention, and he gave me that one.
850,000 polygon Greek statues imported into virtual world sounds rather good. The only problem is that Millennium is not what I call a virtual world. It's an individual installation.
It was imported into the Avaya Live Engage, which is a virtual world platform, and the virtual world itself is Art Gallery 25, and you can visit it. It's permanently up on the web, so you can visit it anytime, and a bunch of my readers have done so.
Right, so, I tend to think of those installations like Unity 3D. They're not interlinked spaces where you can travel. That's really what I mean.
They're kind of interlinked. With Avaya Live Engage, you can log in and use your same avatar to visit multiple locations.
Yeah.
And they're all run on the Avaya Live platform. So it's kind of like one big world. It's missing a lot of the features that we think of as virtual world features, like all the social stuff. But it's not really meant for that. It's meant more for the business collaboration kind of things, not for the social kind of shopping and accumulating stuff in your inventory kind of stuff.
There was one good thing about it, if I remember, because I went in there with there's two of them, Joe Rigby and Ken Rigby, I think his brother is. But I went in there for a couple of their things, and if I recall, it was actually film friendly. I was able to hide the interface and zoom around and do all the camera stuff.
Oh, good.
So it unlike Unity and a lot of the others, where you just can't seem to get rid of interfaces and stuff. If I remember, Avaya was very friendly.
Yeah, it's not. A lot of these worlds use Unity, but they don't. They have their own plugin that you download and install that Avaya wrote, and so it's kind of designed around this virtual world platform. So that's nice. It's easy to navigate. It's quick to set up because there's so few choices for avatars. It's easy to get started, and you go in and you can watch these marketing presentations, basically demos of manufacturing products, that kind of thing, and that's on the web, so it's very lightweight. You install this plugin and you're in the world. And then once you install the plugin, you visit any virtual space, very easily by just going to its URL. So I can see something like this eventually migrating to HTML5 and WebGL, so you don't even have to download a plugin. But this dates back a few years, back before that was possible. So it's all mesh-based. It's not a prim-based world. But it's one of the three big ones for enterprise collaboration: Avaya Live, Protosphere, and 3D ICC's Turf, formerly Teleplace, are the three big enterprise-focused platforms. So this is definitely one of those.
There was there's a couple of things. I haven't got this handy, and I haven't put it anywhere yet. But there was a video came out yesterday, in fact, from the same people who put on the Singularity conference, the Crash Second Life. Well, thanks to Philip Rosedale, and ended up on Google Hangout a couple of weeks ago. And they actually held a session via Google Hangout, but from Immersive Turf. And it's very weird because all the participants have got real-world webcams on huge screens in a virtual room. And the camera, of course, is in the virtual room. So instead of swapping cameras like on Hangouts, it's panning around to the various screens which are occupied by the real-world participants. It's an uncanny mixed reality event, actually, even though its subject matter is probably not of general interest. It's rather academic. Right. But another link, and I'm just putting it in Skype now, if somebody can transfer it. This is from the MIT Technology Review a couple of days ago. Experiments in Second Life reveal alternative laws of physics. And this is really fascinating because, I mean, Philip Rosedale, for example, is by trade a physicist. Physics and, the rules of physics very much come into, as well as the graphics rules, fidelity of the virtual world, physics are a very important part of the equation. Do we walk around and emulate real world physics? On the other hand, we can fly and we can create amazing interactive sort of art installations that defy the laws of real world physics. Not possible in real life, as they are often called. But this article was really interesting because this is serious research. And they are experimenting with the possibilities of what they can do with for want of a better word, real-world physics by challenging the boundaries using Second Life as a virtual environment. So they're not just coming up with, destroying the rule book on physics, but they are using the what's possible in Second Life to actually, see what they can get away with, on the cutting edge of the rules of physics. And right. I thought this was really quite fascinating.
I saw that and I passed it along to freelancers, see if we can get something written up on it. I'm particularly interested in why they didn't decide to use OpenSim, where you can actually change the physics. Like in Second Life, you're kind of stuck with the Linden physics, but in OpenSim, you can tweak the physics settings on your region. You can change the force of gravity, you can plug in a different physics engine, anything you want.
I wonder if they even knew. You'd think they would, but I mean, it is possible they just discovered Second Life and thought we can try this out there, and they've just never come across OpenSim.
Or it could be that they started this a while ago, because it takes a while to get funding one of these projects, and then it takes longer to publish it, then it takes longer to get written up. So this might have actually begun like 5 years ago, when OpenSim wasn't an issue.
Very true. Okay, the next link, again, we're all related. I know you've got more to come, but I'm sort of tying it in for a little break here, as it were. The next link is from our all-new favourite blog, isn't it? Road to VR. Here we go. Oh, it's a long one. Good job. I did copy it in. This was a post, actually it was early last week, I think it was Monday, beginning of the week. Overview of positional tracking technologies for virtual reality.
They beat me to it.
Yes, quite simply. An overview. But I love blogs like this because it's an overview, roundup, assessment. It just somebody comes up with a post that just nicely tries to compact, all these emerging trends and things into one place. Sometimes to lesser or to greater success, I hasten to add. But it's nice they did that as a kind of overview. And one other blog. Actually, this is fairly minor. It's actually a 5-minute audio cast at a place called All Tech Considered, which seems to be a subsidiary of NPR. I'll give you that. I'll give you the link anyway. It's a 5-minute audio piece on Into the Virtual Reality Lab with pioneering researchers. But you don't really get that much in 5 minutes. But,
No.
again, nice to see people showing interest.
You posted the Road to VR link again.
Did I post it twice? Oh, so I did.
Instead of the other one. Yeah.
Oh, balls, and I now. Sorry, pardon my language. I've now gone and. I've just put the blasted link away. Okay, well, you carry on, and I'll see if
I'll carry on while you find it. Okay, so a few things came out of Kitely this week, as always. Some days I feel like I'm like the Kitely newspaper. They fixed one of the more minor but still annoying hypergrid bugs. Right now, if you want to jump to a region on a grid, you type in a region name. So if you want to go to Maria's place, you type in Maria's place and you teleport there. And if Maria's place is on a different grid, then you type in the hypergrid address. You would type in hg.hyperica.com:8022/Maria's place, and then you would go there. But what happens if you're already on that grid and you type in the full hypergrid address by mistake instead of typing in just the region name? It fails. Right now, if you're on the same grid, you have to type in just the region name, and you can only type in a hypergrid address if you're going to an address on a different grid. So, and sometimes you just don't, all you have is the hypergrid address of the destination, and you cut and paste it, and it doesn't work, and you're like, oh no, why isn't it working? Without noticing that, oh, it's because I'm already on that grid. Because it's easy to lose track if you're hypergridding around 10 different grids. But more importantly, it makes it difficult for gates to work, for hypergates, where you can put in hypergrid address, and the gate has to figure out, okay, is this an address on a different grid or on the same grid, and parse it all out and stuff. So Kitely fixed this bug so that now whether you type in an address to a local destination as just a single region or as the full hypergrid address, it still takes you to the right place. So right now they only fixed it on the Kitely grid because it's a back-end server thing that's kind of intertwined with their systems. But they will be donating the fix to the OpenSim community as well. So that's a good thing, and I'm looking forward to that because I do a lot of hypergate scripting. And that is an annoying thing that I have to warn people against. They've also redesigned their landing region, which, I really don't care that much about. Grids are always redesigning the central landing regions. And they've redesigned their website. And again, not usually something I care about because grids are always redesigning their websites. But the day that they announced the redesign, ZetaMex also announced their redesign. So I'd figure I'd compare the two and see who comes out. And I like the Kitely redesign better. And ZetaMex wasn't particularly happy with my review. But hopefully they'll get over that in time to appear on the show. What else happened this week? Tropical Paradise shut down. So that's Everworld shut down, then Tropical Paradise, again, without any warning to their users. I hate that when this happens.
I remember, I've got it up here, the headline to that, because, another grid shuts down with no warning.
No warning.
Be warned,
Come on, good. How hard is it to give even a week notice to your residents so they can get their stuff out, cash out, clean up, get alternative, meetup locations with all their friends. Let's all move over to this grid or that grid. Come on, give people a chance. If you have an Inworld group and that's the only way you have of contacting people, and the grid shuts down, you lose contact with all your friends. I mean, it's not just your inventory is lost. It's all your builds are lost. Everything. You really need people to.
Did that world have a currency system? Or is it just mostly shared content?
Tropical Paradise?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Okay, it's interesting. The reason I think of this is this was raised in a conversation a while back, probably had here, which, imagine that Second Life went under. We dread to think, but, the argument is that nobody would know because, there will be a run on cash outs of Linden's. It's not so much a matter of what's in your inventory and stuff like that. It would be a matter of it was said that Linden Labs subsidiary that handles the Linden dollar, that is backed up by X amount of US dollars, but would not necessarily support all the Lindens in circulation.
Right.
And there was obviously a very big issue there, because if you have anything of any size with a customer dependency and you just go out of business, it's not just the inventory and stuff that's lost, but you might actually lose money that's invested. Intangibly, even in the platform.
Yes, the Tropical Paradise had the Bees virtual currency. I'm looking at my active grids list now, and they were closed. They were closed commercial grid. So because they're closed commercial grid, it means people can't export their entire inventory or their entire regions. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're a commercial grid, you need to have enough currency on reserve to give refunds to your customers if you close down. You need to give people enough time to get their stuff out. And you need to have a policy in place for transferring content. If, say, for example, you're a merchant with a shopping mall, I mean, it takes so much time and effort to get your content into a grid. You really want to be able to get that as an OR export. For example, they could have it set up so that you can export everything if you're the creator. We have filtered OR exports available in OpenSim, where you can only save stuff that you own, for example. Or they can have a deal with, if you're moving to another closed grid, they will move over your region and your inventory to that grid, for example. Like if you want to move to everything to Inworlds, they can set it up for you. So there's all sorts of things that they could offer you as options if they close down. But they have to think about it ahead of time. So if you're going to be refunding currencies, you need to have reserves available on hand. And I think this is really important for the future. If a grid wants to have trust from its residents, it needs to say these things up front. We will give you notice. We will allow you to refund your money up over a certain amount or under a certain amount, or whatever the policy is. Just make it clear up front so people aren't surprised.
Absolutely.
And then when it does happen, don't surprise people. Where one day you just wake up and everything's gone.
Go out with a decent reputation, at least.
Exactly, because you will be working on new grids again, and people will remember that you left everybody hanging. That you were rude to people. That you didn't do a nice job. Shutting down. So I think this is something that grids should watch out for. Okay, the OSCC, the OpenSim Community Conference, which is happening next November, officially put out its announcement that it's scheduled and that we're seeking supporters and speakers. We have new lower funding levels this time around. We're looking for speakers to speak on various topics. I'm heading up the business and development track, but there's also plenty of other tracks for people to participate in. Let's see. And there's a new kind of crowdfunding options available for people who can't go in at the $500 level. So people should take a look at that as well. And we're also looking for volunteers, greeters, people to help out, moderators, welcomers, people to show people around, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to help support it, we have, if you go to the page, I'll post the link into Skype so you can share that. There's a crowdfunder campaign up on the menu, and there's a sponsors section on the top menu as well. And you can participate in either one of these. And again, you can also participate as a volunteer and as a speaker. And if you want to talk about business, talk to me in particular. And so we've got the deadlines that'll be coming up this summer for doing this. So the crowdfunding package support starts at $10, and I think anybody can afford this. And it goes up to for $100 and $200 for other sponsor packages. So please do take a look at that. We need your support. And this conference is a great. I should shut that down if that was me.
I think it was me, but I don't know where it was coming from, to be honest. It might have been Skype. No.
The conference is a great thing. Last time, because of the conference, the developers fixed something like over 1,000 different bugs in OpenSim. They've really worked hard to make, because they had a deadline, they worked hard to make it stable. They worked really hard to make it scalable. They were trying to fix all these things that have been falling through the cracks, like, oh, we'll get around to it later. Well, you can't, there's no later. The conference is coming up. They fixed the hypergrid bug where you couldn't jump more than 4,000 regions in any direction. So last year's conference was great for that. And really brought the viewer developers together with the server developers. Normally, these two groups don't talk to each other. They're very, they go off in their separate directions. And now they were in the same place, talking to each other. Also really great for OpenSim. Last year's conference really jump-started development, helped bring the community together, really showcased a lot of amazing things going on in OpenSim. And it's a very worthwhile thing to participate in. So definitely check that out.
Great. I do apologise for the background noise there. It was actually a link that I was going to give everybody, but I'm actually not really sure I should. It's got an auto-playing, well, you probably heard an auto-playing, what's it on? And
yes, we did hear.
Yes.
And Twitter's nice and neatly refreshed itself. Okay. One other link I have. Okay. I'm going to copy this across. Interesting thing. The title of this piece is Virtual Training May Help Adults with Autism Ace Job Interviews. Yeah. The long title. You sound like you've read that.
I've been seeing a lot of the virtual training simulations for psychological, for physical rehabilitation, for a lot of stuff like that happening right now. And in fact, I just spoke at length to a company doing this for returning vets to help them with careers. So a lot of interesting things happening in this space. It's a great virtual reality is such a great way to deliver training simulations that I think it's going to be one of the killer apps for the enterprise users of this technology. Okay, so
right. This is a diversion. Tara was talking about the virtual birthing thing earlier on, the real world versus the role play ones. But I think you can't really deny that Second Life, due to early press and stuff, has a bit of a reputation for its, all they do is virtual sex in there and stuff like that. And I actually found a link at the Guardian earlier in the week, which I think, no, it can't have been the Guardian. I don't. I'll try loading it again. Right, it wasn't the one that was making noise, basically.
But while you're doing that, I would like to urge people not to search for childbirth on YouTube. There is an awful lot of extremely explicit childbirth videos, and my eyes are still burning from seeing that.
I thought there were. Yeah, that's a special moment. It's special.
So in other words, that disproves your earlier suggestion that it.
Yes, I was totally wrong. I was so wrong. Yes, I am so wrong and still shaking a little.
And now we have a whole new generation of children born on YouTube to look forward to educating.
I was surprised earlier when Tara was saying that you wouldn't find anything like that through normal channels, because actually we have had childbirth documentaries and stuff on regular television.
No, I was the one saying that, and I was wrong.
Yeah, in the UK, there have been plenty, but they're all above board. They're all sort of academically. But anyway, I saw a blog or a tweet or something with a link in the week. So, and the headline on the link before I got there was something like Second Life loses its bad reputation, for sex and everything.
Oh,
and
we need that link. Let's see it.
Yeah, well in fact, it could have been several different blogs this week, to be honest. But one of them here at The Guardian, good old Guardian newspaper in the UK, had a post entitled "From Teledildonomic." No, dildo non. From Teledildo.
Dildo Metanomics.
Donics, yeah,
Dildodonics.
Dildodonics God, what a word. To interactive porn : the future of sex in the digital age. Now, when I started reading this, I thought, this is crazy. There's nothing about virtual worlds here. But of course, I was totally wrong, because it's a long article, and halfway down the article, having discussed various relationships between people and whatever, they actually zone on in Red Light Center and Youthiverse, and they have comments from the CEO there, Schuster, Brian Schuster, and clearly whoever pointed in this blog was saying, the Second Life have got competition now when it comes to sex. You got this new thing called Youthiverse, obviously getting a lot of mileage out of exactly what they do, which is quite funny, because it in a way, it would be quite cool if Youthiverse became the big new thing for sex, and Second Life got relegated to. What do they do in Second Life now? They go to the universe, everybody's gone to universe. Yeah, well, quite. But it was interesting. It was about virtual relationships and things, obviously of the rather more engaged type of relationship. And so this was coming into play. I did actually see, and I have run the clip on the news channel of the new viewer that Youthiverse have brought out, and I must say that compared with there was a side-by-side video clip of Youthiverse as it used to look and Youthiverse as it looks in this new viewer, and the difference is amazing. It's like comparing Second Life of 7 years ago to Second Life now.
Does it look as good as Second Life? How does it compare to the
Well, actually,
Second
it does.
Life?
It does. It does.
Good.
It works totally differently. Everything you actually want to do in participatory terms costs you money. So, it's not a place to hang out unless you've got a fat wallet. It brings on multiple instances of the same sim. So if one gets crowded, more people. It's a totally different way of working. But visually, it's not half bad, put it that way. I can see one going in there to film with the camera, except that to film with the camera, I'd also need to have a big wallet to even go through a door.
Why would you do that when everybody knows it's free? No, here.
Yeah,
Not.
Exactly. But the sex market and the emphasis on market is bound to get in there. So yes. Now I have no idea which of the myriad clips on that thing I just opened actually fired up a musical soundtrack I couldn't get rid of. But there have actually been several other posts on similar themes. There's a blog. This is quite a good one too. The blog's name is Serotonin, or rather Serotoninin, I think, presumably after that chemical that goes to our brains. But it's a piece, when it opens, it will be a piece, specifically looking at real-world locations that inspire great virtual worlds. It's probably coming from the gaming perspective a little bit here, but, the idea that people are building in virtuality, based on really exotic real-world locations, the connections between them. So I've stuck that in a link there. Oh yes, Virtual Vices by Pete Singer I think that might be the one that opened up a lot of noise. I can give you a short link. It's flip.it/Y lowercase n capital J 1 capital K. In fact, I can probably get that over.
You should just type that in, yeah.
Yeah, I'm copying
easier.
it. I'm copying that across. I
There
think that
you
was the
go.
one that unfortunately opens up with a noise.
It's okay. They don't care.
um,
Yes, that would be T.co Gamosi Chop.
Thank you, Tara.
whatever. Anyway, I wanted to get that. Oh yes, and the other thing, of course, is that you haven't mentioned this yet yourself, Maria. Underway now still, but it's been going for a few days now. Is the first Fest Abbey 2014 on Franco Grid, and they are actually broadcasting. Awful lot, maybe 24 hour on live stream here. They have a channel of their own, which you'll be able to find at livestream.com/FG Live. FG as in Franco Grid Live. So they have a live stream channel up, and you can party with them as they celebrating French. Their festival, but we don't have audio translators that work very easily with virtual worlds, but they're having great fun. So if you want to see what Franco Grid's all about, you might as well watch it on television to get a taster
and practice your high school French.
Indeed, and Franco Grid, of course, is it's actually one of the very big grids in some ways, because it's it's like having a UK grid or a Mexico grid. It's specifically aimed at French, of which there are quite a few people. But the wonderful thing about it is this is, of course, on the hypergrid, so they don't mind having visitors.
Nope, and in fact, you can even participate in the contests without having a local presence.
Yeah.
So they're fully hypergrid enabled. They're open source, not open source. They're open grid, and they're one of the older grids on hypergrid. So, and they have a beautiful website. I point to their websites a lot as just a really stunning example of a really beautiful design. So everybody should visit.
I remember we went over quite a bit on. I do remember, because you were in it too. Pathfinder's Hypergrid Adventurers Club back in the early days, and we had quite a few trips, I think, to Franco Grid, because I think because it was a great place we could pick up freebies and stuff like that. Back when the Hypergrid wasn't quite as big as it is now.
Yeah, you had some French designers for your French clothing, your French shoes.
Yeah, great place to go shopping if you want to.
Yes, and they had some live music there as well, and some museums and some operas. So very nice cultural destination. Hors d'oeuvres. They had the Eiffel Tower. Very nice place to go and be a virtual tourist.
Actually, I think one of the first things I ever found on Franco Grid was something I'd been dying for, and it was like a video camera, on the stand that you would put it like as a prop in the studio, and it was elementary and it didn't do anything, and it was quite prim heavy as well. But I was so pleased with myself because I'd actually found a prop that I was going to have a use for.
So the last thing I want to talk about was.
Make it quick. We're getting close to wrap here.
Yeah, we have about 15 minutes at most to go.
No, we don't.
We have 5 minutes.
Okay, we're killing it too. Okay, right. Well, in that case,
sorry.
My
was about Palmer's lucky statement that virtual reality is a moral imperative. I posted a little snippet from a video there. Road to VR talked about it. And Palmer Luckey, of course, what a great name, Luckey. He's the one who just sold the Oculus Rift for $2 billion to Facebook.
That's what you call Lucky.
That's what I would call Lucky, yes. So he talks about virtual reality as a moral imperative.
Oh, yes.
He specifically talks about how virtual reality, once it's a perfect duplicate of the real world, that poor people will be able to do stuff that only rich people can do right now. And even without it being totally perfect, our lives are pretty good here in the West, so we want our virtual reality to be really smooth. But for people maybe in the third world, a virtual reality might be good enough, which I thought was a little weird.
I don't know. I think, I look at lifestyle blogs and things, and there's a lot of people in places like Brazil that write fashion blogs and everything else, and I really get the feeling that, a lot of third world country residents are actually people that use Second Life for escapism because they can get it in the virtual world what they don't possibly have in real life. So it has an important role there, I think.
Yeah, but while I hate to disagree with anybody who sold a company for $2 billion because, if you're right, why aren't you rich? That kind of attitude. But I think that there's bigger moral imperatives for virtual reality. So my first one is the environmental one, because a virtual replacement doesn't have to be perfect in order to be good enough. So audio recording isn't as good as a live concert performance, but for many of us, it's still plenty good enough, and in fact has some advantages. You can carry it with you while you're running. You can't really take an orchestra with you when you go on a jog. So it does have some advantages. So that a digital copy may, even when it's inferior, may still offer quite a bit of a benefit and can thus replace the real to a certain degree. So you might have virtual meetings replacing real-world travel. You might have virtual goods replacing real-world goods. And so this is a good environmental thing, because as we're replacing our vinyl LPs and our DVDs, virtual copies, it's replacing paper with virtual files. This is all means lower impact on the planet.
Well, I remember when Cisco were first in Second Life, and we had endless conversations there, particularly about that thing, the space and presence, and the way that empowers us, to not need to abuse, oil and things we use for transport and all sorts of things. You've still got server farms, but they can be hydroelectric, although this new solar technology is very
and they
effective.
have much less of an impact individually. So it takes a lot less energy to take you from one part of the world to another virtually than to physically take you on a plane and the hotel rooms and everything else.
And not to mention the time you waste traveling in some respects.
Jet engine fuel.
Anyway, I do apologise for I've actually been counting my clock here based on the time we've been on air. But we didn't go on air on the hour today, unfortunately. So, in fact, my 2 o'clock deadline is approaching. So we are going to have to start wrapping up here. One thing I would finish with is it features mostly the week before last, but there's a lot of videos online now of yet another conference. And I guess you can probably find it by Googling AWE. This was an augmented reality conference, which was colossal from what I can see of the film. And one of the organisers of it was our old friend Tish Shute, Torah 50 in Second Life here. She has a blog called Yugo Trade, which nothing has appeared until I think yesterday when she actually posted one of her clips. But she introduces most of the panel. She does her turn introducing half the panels and half the speeches there. The amount of film that's coming up from that conference is mind-boggling. I don't know how many tracks they had and over how many days, but there's some absolutely fascinating stuff there. Far too much for me to download and upload anywhere specific. But if you're interested in augmented reality, and remember that does connect to possibilities for virtual reality too. In fact, Tish herself describes it as AR-VR. She still connects the two in mind. There's some amazing stuff there, and actually it immediately made me think I've got to get hold of Tish and maybe get her on the show just for an update on augmented reality, because she usually likes coming on and she's great to talk to. So look up AWE on Google. Right. Let's just go quickly around with any closing stuff. Anything you didn't cover, Maria, that you can cover in 30 seconds flat?
Okay. I think that the bigger moral imperative for virtual reality is social connections. Right now, social connections dictate what you can do in life. Yeah. You have to be in Silicon Valley to get a startup, to get venture capital, to get employees. Virtual reality breaks down the geographic barriers between people. So somebody living in rural Wisconsin can make the contacts they need to become an actor, a startup entrepreneur, whatever they want to do in life. that's dependent on social connections. We can make relationships virtually through having shared experiences that right now are only possible through shared experiences in the real world. And I think this would be an amazing opening up of flowering of creativity in the world as a result of opening up these kinds of social connections to everybody.
Absolutely. And of course, it's just not the connections. You can also demonstrate and do things you know, that go way beyond just making the connection as well. Okay, Petlove. Anything exciting apart from the fact we got to let you off the hook to get to another gig?
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's just so much. I can't even think of anything right now. I would just recommend everybody make sure to watch this show every Sunday, because it really is all encompassing, and it's even deeper. It includes Second Life instead of being specifically about Second Life, and I think it's important to remember that we need this overarching show in addition to the specific focuses on our own favorite virtual world, Second Life. I think it's really nice that you can provide a balance, Mal, as we look in broader terms at the virtual worlds that are out there. And you were talking about a patent idea. I want somebody to build me a hypergrid marketplace. I just want 25% of the profits.
I think. Okay, well, I was going to say you've got one with Kitely, but there again, I think we better shut up.
Oh, really? Okay, all right. I'm there.
I don't quite think you're going to get 25% of the profit.
No, maybe not. I'll just buy stuff. That's fine.
And you can sell stuff on there.
Do they sell camera huts? Do they sell camera huts? Do they have scripted
no,
huts?
I've been searching for a camera.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about.
I think we'll have to get hold of the person who makes the one we use here and see if they can make an offline one that can be imported.
All right.
To
Well, that's all I've got. And thank you.
And I'd also like a copy of Reese in OpenSim.
Yes, absolutely.
Then I can move everything there. But as you say, we're passionately looking at the frontier of all these wonderful things.
Yeah.
VR, AR, and virtual worlds themselves. Immersive spaces, wherever they're found, really.
Yeah.
Communication spaces.
We need to remember our place in the world as well as
we do like going shopping in the high street, and that's Second Life.
I just want a camera hut.
So do I. Oh, super kind here, aren't we? Okay, Tara.
Just to come back to Second Life for a closing item, since Honor was not able to be with us today, just to let everyone know that applications are now open for round 7 of the Artist in Residence at the Leah Sims. Deadline is June 30th, and that's a 5-month grant with 3 months in the actual live exhibit. Going. Do catch that. And there's a new exhibit that's opened at Leah that looks quite fascinating to me called A Maze in Grace.
Yeah,
that is amazing.
Quite it looks really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, looks like it's worth checking out. That's it for me.
All right. Well, if you're watching tomorrow's Week in Review when it's posted, which is actually probably going to be early hours of tomorrow in the UK here, so late Sunday in America, we have various clips of, I think we have something on the maze, but we've certainly got H220 and various other layer arts clips and things, some really choice stuff, albeit a short strand this week. And, oh yes. I haven't even opened my feed for Second Life this week, such has been our truly engaging conversation on great.
And you're 5 minutes over time anyway.
But I would add to those events that I think it was yesterday or the day before the fashion fair opened. Now I'm not normally the fashionista coverage or anything, but the fashion fair is actually a major fair on multiple sims, and it's a bit like Fantasy Fair. I've been looking at pictures of the build, and some really exotic builds being done for it. And of course, more importantly, all the funds raised go to Relay for Life. So it's a sort of Relay for Life event too. So for the next week or so, you can check out Fashion Fair Inworld. I'm sure typing that into Second Life search, you might even get a result. In fact, if you use Firestorm, it's on the login page. So there you go. Right. Okay. Well, that's it from me, and I am going to have to wrap up on behalf of everybody. So I'd like to thank everybody who's here. Thank you, Petlove.
You bet. Anytime.
Thank you, Maria.
It's been great being here. Thank you.
And for the news every day on the Hypergrid, do check out Hypergrid Business, all one word, .com. And thank you to Tara.
Yeah, you're most welcome.
And thank you to myself, who will be back same time, same place next week. Just a reminder that if you want to watch this show in replay, it will always be available in perpetuity, we hope, on the video on demand site Slartist. That's SLARTIST.com, and the recording of this show will be available on this channel as part of the Week in Review tomorrow. So that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will be back next week with joined by who knows who, but certainly ourselves. So we will see you then.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye now.